Arthur, so glad you're here for this because you represent Ghislaine Maxwell. So you have to follow this for your day job. What's happening here? What does this mean to you?
Okay, so let me just put it all in perspective. So we have represented Ghislaine for probably better part of 2 years. We wrote, submitted, and argued her case, her trial where she was convicted in the Second Circuit Court of Appeals here in Manhattan, of which we lost, not surprisingly so. And then my friend and colleague, David Marcus, he did the cert petition for the Supreme Court of the United States, and he has handled down in Florida everything that we've heard going on with conversations with Ghislaine and all of that stuff. I'll also tell you this, Megyn, and you and I go back 21 years now, and I think you'll understand this. When I have had I don't even know, hundreds of conversations with Ghislaine Maxwell, like, I don't ask her, like, oh, what happened on the island and who was there? And it's really been all about her trial and how she was mistreated, like where she was sleep deprived during her trial. She was not able to eat food because those kinds of issues, evidence that was allowed in, evidence that wasn't allowed in, and then of course there's this non-prosecution agreement. So people who are calling me, my friends in the media and all around the world, are just like, what happened? Was Bill Clinton there? And did she really have a threesome?
We do want to know.
Gore? Like, yeah, I look, I get it, but I know you know what professionals we all are. Like, those are just not questions you need to ask a client who you're representing them on their appeal. It's more about what happened in the courtroom during the trial. So with that being said,
quit holding out, Arthur. Give us some details. Come on.
Spit it out.
With that being said, I don't have like some magic information. I do know what the legal focus is whether the United States Supreme Court is going to accept her case, where some states in the United States of America say that when a federal
prosecutor... Before you get to that, let me just set it up.
Okay.
Her appeal is based on, at least in part, the what's going up to the Supreme Court, you hope, because they can take it or reject it, is she says Jeffrey Epstein, when he struck that sweetheart plea deal in 2008, that there was a non-prosecution agreement saying the United States will not prosecute Jeffrey Epstein's associates in connection with these crimes that I'm pleading on. And he named 4 associates specifically. And Ghislaine, was she one of them?
No.
She wasn't one of them. But it had a catch-all that seemed to suggest it was like these 4, but not limited to these 4, will not be charged. Right. And so now you guys are saying this entire prosecution of Ghislaine in 2018-19 was inappropriate because Jeffrey Epstein basically covered her with that sweetheart plea deal that he struck back in 2008. The other side's disagreeing that applies to Ghislaine. And they're also arguing, the government, federal government right now, this Attorney General's office is arguing, when we said the United States won't prosecute, we only meant the Southern District of Florida. We did not mean the Southern District of New York or any other U.S. Attorney's office. So those are the 2 big things that are being appealed. And the Supreme Court's got to decide whether that non-prosecution agreement can be interpreted the way you guys are arguing or should be interpreted the way the government is arguing. And there's a split in the underlying circuits on the law.
Correct. So just so people understand what that means, certain states of the United States of America acknowledge that Ghislaine should be covered under that. And other states say, no, it only pertains to the district where the cooperation agreement is signed. And those are the types of the cases that the Supreme Court of the United States of America is supposed to take when, their different states or different circuits are contradicting each other. They're supposed to be the tiebreaker. However, to be blunt, all of this notoriety around Ghislaine the last 2 months, I think, I've already said on your show, I think the chances of her being heard in the Supreme Court are diminished by her name recognition. And now that's even more so. Do you really think Chief Justice Roberts wants to get in the middle to Jeffrey Epstein thing? They're having enough problems with their reputation. This is not going to help her. This is only going to hurt.
There's that, Arthur. But also the question is this a large enough issue that affects that many people that the Supremes want to take on their docket, a very limited docket? I'd like them to selfishly. I'm making deals in federal court every day. And when prosecutors say, we're not going to do something, I don't think, well, wait a second. Do you work for a different government? Aren't you all under the same employer? You mean somehow somewhere else they could violate this agreement, this contract that you and I have? But that said, I don't know that the Supremes are going to think that this has that kind of far-reaching effect and take it on their docket.
Just to make clear for the audience listening at home, just to make clear, there's a split in the underlying circuits right underneath the U.S. Supreme Court on whether, when the government agrees that it's not going to prosecute you, like I was saying, it's agreeing for the entire federal government in all jurisdictions, or it's only agreeing in your jurisdiction that you currently have this legal issue in. And Ghislaine and Arthur are arguing when it says the United States will not prosecute, it means the United States government, period, in any jurisdiction. And there are some federal district or federal circuit courts of appeal that have agreed with that. But unfortunately for Ghislaine and Arthur, there's another set of federal courts of appeal that have said, no, it only means the one limited jurisdiction in which the criminal case at issue was brought. So this
just
would
point,
be the kind of thing the U.S. Supreme Court might take up because it's its job to resolve splits in the circuits, but it only would take it if it's like a big enough case and the right case, and it depends on how sharp the split is, how recent the split is, and basically it seems like this is not the best vehicle to get the split issue resolved, Arthur, on top of the publicity of having it be Ghislaine Maxwell, the Supreme Court, and John Roberts. Yeah, I agree with you. Probably won't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole. Go ahead.
So just so folks understand, when you make this agreement, when they made this agreement down in Florida, and Mark could attest to this as well, when you make these big agreements that really matter, they always tell us, the defense attorneys, well, this has to go to Washington to be approved by the Attorney General of the United States of America. So it's not that it's the local.
That happened here.
Correct. So it's that it's like just the local prosecutor is saying this, and someone can say, well, how could a guy in Florida handcuff someone in Manhattan? And they can't. But the Attorney General of the United States of America, who they
Main
all
Justice
work
can.
for, Main Justice can, and that was our argument to the Second Circuit, and I'll be blunt, they weren't buying it like for a second, because in the Second Circuit, their position is no, you can only handcuff whatever circuit you're in.
Yeah, and the problem is it sounds very fact specific. In other words, Arthur has very unique facts, like that it ran up to the highest in that department. And, the Supreme Court, they're not going to get involved in something that just has appeal to this particular defendant. And
on that front, another unique thing about Ghislaine's appeal is normally it's the guy who signed with the government. It's the guy who got off the hook. This would be a more typical case if it were Jeffrey Epstein saying, you can't prosecute me. You signed a non-prosecution agreement with me back in 2008. But this is not Jeffrey Epstein. It's an associate of his. And on top of that, it's an associate who wasn't specifically named in the non-prosecution agreement. And so these are all excuses for the Supreme Court to say, this one's not the right one for us to resolve this issue, because they have enough heat coming down on them every day thanks to all these Trump rulings. Now we're going to get Russiagate rulings. We're going to get, does Obama have immunity? All this stuff is about to come to them. They don't want to touch hot button political issues if they don't have to. And this one's about as hot as they come. All right, let me shift gears and ask you guys, as just people who are members of the criminal bar, what's going to happen in response to all these subpoenas? It's the House Oversight Committee. They've issued valid subpoenas. Generally, if you blow off a subpoena that you get from the House of Representatives, they refer you to the DOJ for prosecution if they want to. And if they can prove you're not complying, you could wind up going to jail, like Peter Navarro or Steve Bannon. So
I was going to say my client Steve Bannon wound up doing some time in jail because he wasn't going to go in there. But Mark could explain, there are procedures and they have to have cause. They can't just start issuing subpoenas to Megyn Kelly and Mark Eiglarsh. There needs to be supporting probable cause. I don't know if that's the correct standard to bring Bill Clinton in. You can't just bring him in for because on a whim, because the New York Post is reporting that Ghislaine may have said, A, B, or C.
Yeah, this is going to be challenged. These people are not going to ignore the subpoenas. They're going to get great lawyers like Arthur, who will then argue that this is harassment. There's no real purpose for them to come in and try to get that subpoena quashed.
Since President Trump was sworn in, his administration has made enormous progress at a breakneck pace. But don't forget, while they are moving mountains for the good of the nation, you've got your personal savings to worry about. And one of the best ways to look after your savings is through diversification, particularly with gold, like from Birch Gold Group. In the past 12 months, the value of gold has increased by 40%. And Birch was an advertiser on this show 12 months ago. If you had purchased then, you'd be 40% richer today. Now's the time. Central banks continue to bolster demand for gold by burying in record quantities. Global instability and tension is high, and Birch Gold makes owning physical gold so easy. Easily convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold, or buy some to store in your home safe. Just text MK to the number 989898, and Birch Gold is going to send you a free info kit on gold. Look into it, see if it's right for you. There's no obligation, just useful information to help you make a decision. With an A+ rating, with a Better Business Bureau, and tens of thousands of happy customers, take control of your savings today. Text MK to 989898. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.